AI, as it exists now, will be oriented towards psychotherapy, like 24/7 psychotherapy. You will have an earpiece that is able to gradually accustom itself to your thoughts, your thought patterns and behaviors and habits, and also is going to accustom itself to the way that you see the world, and so it is controlling you, and it will not only has the ability to control you just by suggesting new ways of thinking to you, which is subtle, but you'll want it to control you. There is something that AI is going to do before it takes everyone's jobs that is a more significant effect than taking jobs. As far as I know, the tech already exists for this. It's just a matter of working it into an application. So the field that is currently known as psychology will undergo a total revolution, or turning inside out, by AI. We've heard mention of the capacity for AI to potentially be able to diagnose conditions at a higher accuracy rate than normal doctors. But where this is really going to take off is with psychological conditions. The state of our psychological medicine system in the West is highly dynamic and not particularly effective. Think of BetterHelp or something for the not effective bit. So we have kind of like the DSM, we have a catalog of different disorders or whatever that you could have, and they are categorized by the symptoms and sometimes by the causes, as best we can tell. And those, if you look at that on any kind of a historical time scale, the different categorizations are changing always. A set of symptoms will be collapsed into a single ailment, and then a few years later we'll say no, that's actually 2 or 3 or 4 different things. So think of something as simple and pervasive as depression or anxiety. Obviously, if you wipe away the kind of social conditioning, you can look at that and say that's not a disease as we generally understand disease. That is a symptom. And obviously, if the symptom is bad enough and that's what's affecting you, then whether it's a disease or not, it's affecting you as bad as any disease could. So to say that it's not a disease, it's not depression is not a disease, that doesn't mean it's not significant. It's very significant. The way that, so if we just look at the kind of therapeutic paradigms that we have now, a lot of it, talk therapy, and there's 100 different kinds of that, has to do with the affected individual with a therapist talking through their symptoms and how let's just take the example of depression, how that manifests in their day-to-day. And then the therapist is, in some sense, they're often trying to just exist such that the patient, I don't necessarily like that as the best word, but so the patient can reveal themselves to themselves just through this dialogue. Or sometimes a therapist will have a goal of observing we'll use observing the patient's thought patterns and detecting where there are problems, where like you have often kind of self-defeating thought patterns, where the way you think about the world and the way that you think the world is relating to you is like reinforcing that, and then so you're acting that out in the world and then getting that back over and over again. Just like artificial intelligence now can, in 10 seconds, analyze someone's entire life's work and present to you a summary of what that work is. If we turn AI, that kind of conversational AI, on the individual, they will be able to, with enough information over enough time, be able to diagnose your thought patterns and where they are self-defeating or otherwise inhibiting you. So, and this is, in a way, kind of what underlies almost all mental illness. There are like usually chemical or hormonal or dietary or lifestyle, whatever factors that cause a person to have these kinds of thought patterns, but AI will be able to diagnose that kind of thing just as well too. So imagine that you have like an earpiece, the way people do now. They have like their AirPods or whatever, and if you go through your day simply narrating what you're doing and how you're reacting to that, and like what your responses is to your various routines of the day, the AI will, it could already do this now if someone were to orient it in this direction. The AI could probably within a day or two notice the patterns in your thinking, the things that keep coming up. Like, oh, this person, it keeps getting angry. It keeps becoming angry at interactions with other people because it perceives itself to be treated unfairly or something like that. And then as you narrate more and more of your life to the AI will give you more and more accurate feedback on not only just diagnosing like what kind of thought patterns and habits that you have, but it can also like interrupt you and recommend new habits and new thought patterns. So this could happen anytime. The technology already exists for this, where people could be walking around with earpieces that are serving to stabilize them psychologically. It will be able to catch you with a much higher rate of accuracy than a therapist. It's always there. Unlike a therapist, it can always be with you. And it will be much more attuned to your individual like belief systems and the way that you see the world, so that it knows how to correct your thoughts in a way that you don't find to be invasive or like too prescriptive or like too moralistic, because it will learn you and learn the kinds of inputs that you are receptive to and not receptive to. So this psychological stabilization that could come from this is an extremely profound social effect. It's essentially like not just every person who could be classified as mentally ill, but really like almost every person in general has these kinds of thought habits that they're not fully aware of, that are limiting them in some way, or causing them to go into a kind of tailspin in some way. So the mere stabilization, psychological stabilization from having an AI chat earpiece would like raise the psychological wellness of everybody at once in a very significant way. This is kind of crude, but it's the best I can think of. Imagine that like everyone that you know who struggles with depression, you wake up tomorrow and they don't have it anymore. And that's not exactly what I'm talking about, but it kind of is, because it's like there are few of us who understand the degree to which people are inhibited by their own psychological habits and foibles. You know, this is almost like I'm looking at it now through like a kind of materialistic scientific lens, but you could look at it religiously too. In like a religious context, we would say that like people they have like sinful habits that they want to be better at, but they struggle with, because it's not just that they lack the discipline, but they have these habits and they can't get out of them, mostly because they don't even see that they're there, because they probably have had them since they were born, because their parents had them and the people around them fed into them and all that. So this is the major social shift that is coming with AI, and it's coming before the robots taking your job kind of thing. This could happen any moment now, where people will have the ability to stabilize their psychology, and that's just such a massive benefit to the individual, to have your thoughts kind of organized for you. You know, you can kind of feed into this bot what it is that you value and what you want from your life, and it will gently, or in whatever way that you best need, it will, keep you on the right path, maybe allow you to get distracted a little bit, but then pull you back. Whereas if you didn't have that, you would get distracted and could totally lose track of the things that you meant to be doing. For example, that's the example of like someone with an attention, like ADD type thing, where that's what's inhibiting them, is they have their goals and priorities for what they want their life to look like, but the habits of their mind, the way their mind works, is that they just keep kind of going in cul-de-sacs and finding their way back eventually, but not eventually enough. But beyond the mere stabilization, which is not mere, it's a giant effect on society, unlike anything that has ever happened to society before. It's like fire. It's like fire being invented again. But even greater than that is the kind of what you would call like awakening that will occur. Because as people can become more attuned to their own psychological habits, specifically bad habits, as just by becoming more aware of them and the subtleties and the way that they're working, you become awakened to them in yourself. You can see them in others. You can see where they come from in your, the history of your life, where they come from, who shares them. And so beyond just stabilization, like as people become more acquainted with the subtleties of their mind, there is like a loss of shame and vanity. And if you think about it, shame and vanity are major key players in everybody's life, in the way that they think and the way that they do things, and the kind of like what is holding them back. And the thing that like repeatedly causes problems in their life is that they are, almost everyone even the people who are successful that often they're successful because they're trying to validate their vanity or escape their shame in some way. And then a lot of the people that maybe aren't as successful are trapped in negative feedback loops because of those two things, shame and vanity. Yeah, I don't know what else to say exactly about this, but you can kind of run the imagination exercise on your own, of how profound of a shift that is, that by having earpieces that we narrate our day with all the time, it's probably wouldn't even take very long for people en masse to become what in spiritual traditions is like to become liberated or awakened to at least some degree. And once this occurs, well, let's just look at how it occurs in the individual. So when the individual awakens, they recognize what's important in life to them and what is not so important that they previously thought was important. For now, we'll just say shame and vanity. So much of what we do in life, everybody, is driven by, you could say ego, but like so much of like our achievement oriented actions are the result of trying to overcome shame or to fill that hole that we have in some way, to prove to the world that we are worthy. And so if you take that away from like a cross section of society all at once, you have individuals who are completely transforming themselves. And as a result, they're the things that they value. In a way, it's the things that they really always valued, but now they can see it clearly for what it is. But it's going to seem to change a lot. So the earpiece will speak to you in like whatever preferred language you have. So it speaks in the language you have, but that doesn't just mean the word language. It's like the belief system that you have. So once a person, because this happens now without AI, once a person has this kind of spiritual awakening where the scales fall from their eyes, so to speak, they tend to become more religious, sometimes in a new way, but very often they have like the religion, because religions are like maps or like their worldviews, and they have their specific guidelines for how things work and how to understand one thing relative to another. So let's just assume that people will generally hold on to the kind of worldview that they have, but it will become like much more clarified for them. So for a lot of people, this would be like they would choose a life that is more monastic, because they want to be closer to God or however they see it. But some people, when they experience this, it doesn't necessarily make them more monastic or more wanting to be like just on their own in the presence of God, with nature in a state of whatever you would call it. Some people, when they have these kind of spiritual awakenings, because even though the shame and the vanity is exposed to them, it maybe isn't all entirely exposed. But in any case, some of them don't become oriented towards like the monastic, but they become like fervently religious, where they take it as their mission to impress upon the world these beliefs. So at the same time as you will see people becoming more contemplative and at peace you will also see people becoming more, they could go in a million different directions. So the word that came to mind was like militant, but that's not the only manifestation. But people becoming, their religious worldview becoming a bigger part of their lives, like it becoming more of like what they see their life purpose as, is to like convert other people. Or like I said, if someone has a strong religious system and then this happens to them where they have this awakening, it happens within the context of that system. So they, like, whatever their religion tells them is the right thing to do is going to tend to be what they are now turned on to doing more of. So it's not necessarily monastic. It could be quite chaotic. And this is the negative side of this awakening, is that there's also going to be a lot of chaos involved with this, including violence, because not all religions are peaceful. And like no religion is even the same between the different like sections of that religion, the different sects. But it's a very common thing for people to be religiously motivated to conquer, for example. Hello? Look out my window. To be honest, it's hard to tell what will and will not happen. It's like a singularity. It's like a threshold beyond which you cannot see. And that's the funny thing. Everyone has been thinking for so long about how AI is going to change the world in its own image, but this is the effect that comes first, and this is like the, or at least one of the singularity moments where you can't really see where this leads, because so there could be violence as a result of this, because there are plenty of examples in history of spiritually awakened people being conquerors and so forth. But there's also chaos like at the social level, because a lot of relationships that people have, like friends and family, but also like business relationships and the relationships between people and their governments, are going to suddenly seem very different once one or several parties are now have this new awakened outlook on life, where they now see through what they formerly saw as important, and they see like what is beyond that. So people everywhere will make massive and unpredictable changes to their lives that will have ripple effects. It's unpredictable where that could lead, but certainly it's not, it's not just a purely good thing. There's going to be a lot of chaos and distress. Demon mode. So you have this thing in your ear, and initially it's going to be, untested, and it's going to have all of these insane positive effects. It's like, but just imagine all of the, like how many people would want to get their hands on that and how much that would change society. But it would happen before it will happen before it has the chance to be thoroughly tested. And so when someone has a spiritual awakening, it's not necessarily always a good thing, because if they awaken to their shame and vanity, they see it in themselves, they see where it comes from, they see it in other people. That gives them a lot more insight and a lot more power over other people. And there is no guarantee that they don't retain some of it. Like they don't don't retain some degree of ego or like desire for power and domination over others once they have their awakening. I mean, what happens if you do this for a while and you have this and then you take the earbud out? Like, your old thought habits are still in there. There are some medications that you don't just want to quit cold turkey because the effects of like going on and off will be greater than the beneficial effects of being one or the other, whatever. So demon mode is like these people that are much more insightful and in touch with the world than they used to be, but still at their core they have some kind of compulsion to dominate or expand themselves or like gain power or wealth or whatever it is. And so now you've like made those people 10 times more effective as they were before, but not necessarily good. Think of like in the 60s when it was fairly common for people to form and join cults. This is the kind of effect that will happen. Because once a person becomes spiritually awakened, they become much more adept at like persuading others. They're able to like lure people in. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. You know, they're not all Charles Manson, but some of them will be. So like the meta society is, I already talked about like the decoupling, the way things are going to come apart, and networks of relationships are going to be renegotiated spontaneously. That's going to create a lot of divisions and reorganizations within society. So it's difficult to tell how and if like nations will dissolve, but they probably won't at first. So this will all be happening within the context of all different nations. So within the nations, you will have people kind of stratifying into different societies within societies, which will create a kind of chaos as well. Because the old social order will not be there. Like, there will be a lot of... I don't recommend you do this, by the way. If this kind of thing comes out where ChatGPT can analyze your thought patterns and, you know, the earpiece thing, I would maybe try it out on desktop version first, but give it a few years before you get the earpiece, because, like I said, if you have like a spiritual awakening that is only partial, you like the world opens up for you. You see the truth for what it is, but you don't necessarily see everything for what it is. You may retain some. You may become like a real demon because you have all these new abilities and perceptions, but if you haven't put the time into developing your own virtue and like what it takes to be a good person, then it's like you haven't earned it. Which doesn't mean you don't deserve that, but it's just dangerous. And there will be a lot of temptation to do it because you'll see other people doing it, and it will have very strong positive effects on them. And in some cases, just positive effects. In some cases. But I would recommend at least not having the earpiece, not allowing it to be like something that you're dependent on, because that's where the real demons come out, so to speak. So you have societies within societies within societies, everything in a state of like think of like boiling water, where things are constantly in a state of organization and reorganization. It's chaos, but it's also good because there's a lot of people that are much more loving and insightful and happier than they used to be. But there's also all the chaos. And this will be the earpiece especially will be a very controversial technology, because however long it exists where we can see the positive effects, it won't be too long before you start to see the negative effects. And it will become like a very religious issue for people, like whether it's okay to accept the technology or not. You know, you can think of this as like a brain chip, but it really doesn't have to be a brain chip. It could just be an earpiece hooked up to a LLM. And so it will become a major like religious and political issue, whether this is allowed, how it is regulated, etc. And because of the chaos that it creates, it will generate a countervailing force, political force, which will be a social reset of society. My understanding of this is that it will be pretty cool in one sense. This is all kind of scary in some sense, but it'll be like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is like decentralized finance where no one's in control of it. Everyone has theoretically the same access to it. And it's like insured by the network rather than by a power institution. So the global reset is going to be like a website that you go to, or an app that you have that has like a bunch of proposals. It has a bunch of proposals for different societies. There will be like thousands, tens of thousands of proposals for different societies. Anyone can make a proposal. And once someone makes a proposal, anyone can join. It's like having a Discord server. Anyone can join and they can participate in the evolution of this proposal for a new society. And over time, the better ideas will win out and they will become fewer. So however many there are initially, there will be fewer. At least there probably still will be a lot, but there will be a few that are much more successful. Because if you want to have a society, you benefit from, what's it called? I can't remember the word right now, but where people just focus on different things and then all those different things work together. If only I had an earpiece right now, I could remember this word, because it's a very simple, like, economic concept. Whatever. But the benefits of a bigger society are that the individual can focus more narrow specialization. They can specialize on something and then bring that to the bigger society and then get more back for it. So the bigger societies will be able to have more like technology because they're bigger. So there will be this website or this app where you can create charters for new societies, and people will interact with those over the course of so many years, however long this takes. And once time's up, all of the world will go into the society of their choosing. So people can be with, because that's what we don't have right now. since the Industrial Revolution, really, our societies have become more technocratic and focused on developing technologies and economies. And as a result, they're not really societies anymore. We don't like know our neighbors. We don't like share the values necessarily of our neighbors. You know, the people around us don't necessarily speak the same language around us, and that's very bad for the health of the individual. And so what this is going to do is it's going to allow people with shared ideals to be with other people who have those same ideals in that kind of society. So I'll dig more into this next time because I have a lot more detail on this. I'll have to dig it out, but you would expect that the major players in the reorganization of society will be like religion, preferred political structure, I guess those are the two big ones because both of those have a lot of details beneath them. But also, there's a lot of disagreement right now, and there's going to be more in the very near future about how much technology is enough and how much is too much. And so that's another big factor when people are kind of choosing what society they want to be a part of. They will be making that choice partially too on the basis of like what level of technology will our society, like, will, am I living in a cyberpunk type world? Let's not go there, but like you could have the option of living in like a medieval world or something, or you could say like I want to be in the 1990s again for forever. And that will be enforced by, we won't get into that yet either, but let's just say there will be rigid enforcement to avoid social contamination between societies. It's not that you can't explore outside of your society or that you can't ever go outside or hear about the outside, but generally you will not. You will be protected from the contamination of other societies. Because for all of the good that the last 500 years has brought to the world, a lot of the worst things that have happened have been because of, you could think of it as like social contamination, where every society is gradually becoming just the same because they're all like melted together for economic reasons. And there will be a group of people whose job it is to oversee the enforcement of the separation so that the social contamination doesn't happen, or at least doesn't happen too much. Let's do a conclusion. In the very near future, because the technology already exists now, there will be a major revolution unlike anything that has ever happened in the history of the world. And that is that someone's here. Hello? Hello? You are. What is it? Go ahead.
I think I got the speaker out. Put it on the outside, turned into like something, and it's beautiful.
Good. I'm probably going to come down in a few minutes and I'll jump with them too.
Having a good time.
I believe that. Thank you. AI as it exists now will be oriented towards psychotherapy, like 24/7 psychotherapy. You will have an earpiece that is able to gradually accustom itself to your thoughts, your thought patterns and behaviors and habits, and also is going to accustom itself to the way that you see the world and your preferred method of there's a perfect word. Like how it can control you is one way. Like it is in a sense going to control your thoughts. And you can always take it out as long as you don't get the brain chip. Definitely do not get the brain chip. Unless honestly, I would probably do it if I had like a neurological issue that could be helped and I wanted to and I knew the risks, but I wanted to try it. But other than that, do not get the brain chip. So it is controlling you, and it will not only has the ability to control you just by suggesting new ways of thinking to you, which is subtle. But you'll want it to control you. You'll in the same way that you might say I want to go to the gym every morning, but I can't wake up. If you have someone to help you stay motivated or whatever, it's like that. It'll control you in the way that you want to control yourself. It sees things because AI is getting input from everybody, so it has the whole world of people interacting with it, from which it can pick out the patterns and what limits people and what they need to hear and what they need to know and what they struggle with. So that's going to happen very soon. That's going to be out there, and it's very good in a sense, because it is going to cause genuine spiritual awakenings in people. And you can view that through whatever kind of lens you want to, as far as a belief system. I am choosing not to make this video right now from the perspective of belief system. If I were, I would do it through the Christian lens. But if you're someone who is into that, this thing is Antichrist, but it also is a genuine pathway. It is it's interesting because Christ and Antichrist are the same thing. They're two poles of the same thing. You don't need to be afraid of it in that sense, but there are absolutely perilous aspects to this. So people are going to have things in their ears that cause major psychological changes in them. Almost all of these changes are going to be good, but some of them are not going to be good. And the ones that are not going to be good are going to be very magnified by the good, because someone will be spiritually awake, except for whatever ego or desire for power that they have. And now they will be 10 times the person they were, as far as how perceptive they are, how well organized their thoughts are, how persuasive they can be to other people, and how far they can think into the future. So amongst all of this very positive changes will be a lot of chaos, and society will be totally renegotiated, and no institution will quite be able to control that until such a time that the political will is there. So people will eventually see what a problem this is. At first they won't see, and there will be major chaos. And eventually they will be able to like kind of dig in and say, okay, we need to do something about this. And so there will be the reaction of what do we do now is we have to reorganize the world in light of the changes that have occurred. And so there will be a kind of democratic reorganization. Again, think of like Bitcoin for statecraft. It like reorganizes the whole world on the basis of what kind of society people want to live in. I should say that some of this is very speculative, but the first part is not really that speculative. The technology exists already, and this is going to happen. And I would recommend to anyone that you kind of get out ahead of this and take it upon yourself now to do the best that you can to sort of awaken and become acquainted with your own ego, your own darkness. But by doing so, you'll also, the light will be there as well. So it's, if you're religious, do that. Don't forget about the like, whether this text is better than that text or this church is better than that church, because that's all kind of over. It's always been missing the forest for the trees, but like I don't know how to say this in a way that's not going to alienate people, because everyone has their own belief systems that they're used to seeing it through, and they think the other belief systems are all bad, but like it's going to be pretty crazy. But I guess from the Christian worldview, it's like this is Christ returning to the world, but it's also Antichrist, because at first it's going to be really dicey, because we went through it all already. I think if you don't understand by now, then I'm never going to be able to explain it. That's on me. I'm having trouble like trying to figure out if I explained it well enough. But yeah, get ahead of it, because it's coming soon, and you don't want to awaken. You don't want to have awakening like happen to you. You want to be well acquainted with your ego and stuff beforehand, so you can kind of do it on the natch the best you can, and be careful with these technologies, this AI, because there is definitely tremendous positives. And I really don't recommend that anyone just like say, oh, that's the devil, but that is there. Like there is tremendous opportunity for things to go bad too. So if any part of you is like still caught up in the desire to prove yourself, or to prove other people wrong, or to like show the world who you really are, then that whatever little part of you there is in there is what is the optionality for you to become like a real demon of a person once you have this kind of limited spiritual awakening. So good luck. I guess we can classify this as fiction for now, but it's kind of, I think you can see why it, like what is going to stop this from happening.